Okay, namaste, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Power of Interpretation with Blue Yogi. So, in this episode, I actually want to talk about identity, because if we're interpreting something, let me ask you guys, what comes first, your interpretation of something or how you identify yourself? Okay, I want that to just be a question, because if let's just say in the first episode I talked about every religion has its own understanding of the creator, for instance, right? So if I identify only with one thing, then my identity would want to make sure I maintain that identity. Does that make sense? Let me say it in a different way. Let's say I identified with just my five senses. So my body, and let's say I identified only with this body and nothing outside of me. If I identify only with my body, then I'm going to be very much in survival mode. Okay? Because I'm going to want to only take care of my taste. So I'm going to eat. I'm going to make sure that is something that's tasteful before it's good for me. I'm going to identify with, and taste has to do with like how you, the feeling of it as well. So if my stomach feels empty, I'm going to want to fill it. I'm going to identify with my sight. So if I feel if I feel something is unpleasant to my eyesight, I'm going to disregard it because I'm only identified with my body. Hearing, if I feel like it's something that is scratchy, and that could be to me, like classical music could sound scratchy to somebody. Metal rock could sound very serene and peaceful to somebody. Don't know how, but hey. So hearing, touch, taste. We did touch, taste, feel. So I'm not gonna put myself around something that doesn't please how when I touch it or interact with it in a physical way. If it doesn't please my feelings of how I think it should feel, then I'm going to disregard it because I'm only identified with my body. Don't know if that makes sense, but let's go a little bit in a different way with that, okay? So this morning even, I was just washing some dishes. I was drinking some water, and I had a bowl of something last night. I didn't wash the dishes last night, so I washed it this morning. When I was washing the dishes, I usually just kind of wash the dishes as I use them, but Mom here, my life mate, the one with the two beautiful kids together, she uses like this little tent, like this bin in the sink. We don't have a sink stopper like to hold the water, so she uses like this plastic thing, and it had a little bit of like dirt in it. As I was cleaning this bowl, I identified myself with that, and I said, how would I want to be treated if I was that bin, or I don't know what to call it, but I was, and to me, I would have wanted somebody to clean me because I can't clean myself. So what I did was I took it and I started cleaning it, and then I saw a little bit more. I identified myself with the sink. I saw a little bit of dirt in the sink, and I said, how would I want to be treated? So I said, well, I would want to be clean if I was the sink. And so I cleaned the sink. And then there was something else next to the sink. It was another dirty dish that I didn't put there, but I used it again. I said, well, what if I was this this other cup and this other bowl, how would I want to be treated? I would want to be clean, as quickly as possible. So I cleaned that out as well. And now if I took you guys over to my kitchen right now, you'll see like the sink is it's white, and the bowl that the tin or the plastic thing that she uses to clean the dishes in, it's all clean and then it's white. So how we identify ourselves, that determines how our power of interpretation works. Okay? And I want to make this a conversation because, if you read the bio of the channel, I'm not like a guru or a master or anything like that. I've just lived my life a certain way, and I've heard a lot of people say, when I'm around you, I feel a little bit more peaceful. And I think that's because of what I'm talking about now. I've developed my power of interpretation, and I think it will always be at a place of growing. It's never like you don't reach the top pinnacle of the power of interpretation. You know what I'm saying? It's something that we just keep developing on a day-to-day. And I wanted to break down a couple things about our perception. And just like the first episode, I wanted to use the definitions from Google and kind of intertwine them with what I'm saying. So perception on Google is the ability to see, hear, or become aware of something through the senses. Okay? So that's why I started. What we identify with will determine our power of interpretation. So perception, the ability to see, hear, or become aware of something through the senses. And then they have another one on here. It says the state of being or process of becoming aware of something through the senses. Same thing, right? I believe our senses aren't just limited to the five senses that we call, that the body has. I believe our senses of emotion, like understanding our emotions, is a thing. I believe our senses of understanding what our intellect, it's a sense of the body. Okay, I hope this makes sense. And I was talking to my life mate earlier today, and something came to my mind. She says to me sometimes, "Man, you grow so fast, and when I feel like I'm somewhere, it seems like you're at a whole nother spot, right?" And I thought about that because even me, I hurt myself sometimes by wanting to stay at a certain place that I think I've grown to. So me being on a spiritual path, I call myself a student of life right now. So I'm a student of life, and when I get to a certain place of understanding how to separate what I said in the first episode, our true self from the mind and the body. You got to be able to see the mind and the body. Otherwise, you can become too identified with it. And when I feel like I've grown to a certain place, I felt in me before like, man, if you go back, you're going to feel bad, so don't do it. And I want to say something about that. I wrote this down. I said, I think it's hard for us to accept our growth sometimes because we know if we drop from that growth, we would feel like a failure somewhere. Okay? I think it's hard for us to accept our growth sometimes because we know if we drop from that growth, we would feel like a failure somewhere. And why is that? It's because we have a unconscious side of our perception, and then we have a conscious side of our perception. Here's a cool statistic to throw out. Out of all the physical nature that we see around us, so the planets, the stars, the asteroids, everything, right? So out of all the physical nature of stuff, how much physicalness is it compared to all the darkness out there? So the space. And if you look this up, it's crazy, right? It's 99.9% space and only 0.1% physical, okay? So it's 0.1 physical out there. Look how big this planet is. Look how big the sun is. And there's way bigger stars out there than our sun. And all of that combined, it's only 0.1% of everything that we're seeing. Similarly, our unconsciousness runs most of this body. Like, you're not beating your heart, you're not thinking about breathing, it just happens. And there's 99.9% of us happening unconscious. Only 0.1% of us is happening consciously. Okay? And what I made this channel for is, let's learn how to be more identified with our unconscious side of us, because it's 99.9% of us being ran by that side of us. So I wanted to break down some things. So what is the complete side of us? There's a chart out there I really like bringing up, and I'll probably break it down later. It's called the BMI chart. So the human, we're the body. So we have a body, we have mind, intellect, which is, I'll break it down in a different way. Our identity is made up of how we view our body, our emotions, our intellect, and our energies. And our energies could be known, it could be known as like, do I feel balanced, right? When you feel off balance, it's like my energies is off. So I wanted to break down what emotions are. Once again, as per the Google lady. So emotion, a natural instinctive state of mind deriving from one's circumstances, mood, or relationships with others. So our emotions, it's basically, we'll say, controlled by, and I'm doing a little what are these things called? Exclamation marks, right? So it's being controlled by, not really like we control our emotions, but in an unconscious state, it is an instinctive thing. So it just comes out, and it's usually by something from the outside. So I have this term where I call close to the sun. So my kids will say that that's the sun to me, and a stranger on the street will say that person is a little further away from the sun for me. So somebody on the street, if they say something to do something to me, I could probably blow it off. You know what I'm saying? I'll probably yeah, I'm glad you said that, but it's no big deal. But if my kids or my life mate or my mom, my dad, if they said the same thing, it could probably crush me. Just one line, crush. I don't like you today, Dad. Crushed. Right? So our emotions, it's an instinctive state of mind deriving from one's circumstances, mood, or relationships. Okay? So we're the emotions, we're the intellect. So let's break down intellect. The faculty of reasoning and understanding objectively, especially with regard to an abstract or academic matter. So when our emotions feel something, our intellect decides what it means to us, right there. And sometimes it's hard to take our intellect off of that. We go back to the line. If my son said, I don't like you today, Dad. It could hurt me inside of my heart, and then my intellect says you're hurt. And he don't like you. And my intellect might hang on to that for years before I actually understand, he was just saying that from a different place of actually not liking me, but just He felt something in that moment. He said it. He just expressed it. But us adults, or when we identify with our intellect, we could hang on to that. All right? Does that make sense? So the intellect, the faculty of reasoning and understanding objectively, especially with regard to abstract or academic matters. So when our emotions are happening, our intellect decides what it is. And let's talk about the body, right? So I said we're emotions, we're the intellect, and we're the body. So the body, what is the body? The physical structure of a person or an animal, including the bones, flesh, and organs. Okay? The physical structure of a person or an animal, including the bones, flesh, and organs. So our body, my body picked up what my son said through the five senses, right? My emotions reacted to it. My intellect decided what it is. Okay? And then we're the energies. So the life energies. So this body's doing a lot of stuff, but once again, 99.9% of it is happening unconsciously. Why is that? Because the energy that is in us is that unconscious space, so to speak. Let's just say it like that for now. If you have a question about that, please ask. I'm trying to make this not 4 hours. So I'm trying to do this short. And I don't want people to pick this up wrong. So if you're hearing this and it sounds like I'm off or you feel a certain type of way, either good or bad, please comment so I know what I'm doing right to people's ears and what I'm doing wrong to people's ears. And let's make it a conversation, because that's the point of this channel, is to make it a conversation. So let's talk about energies. So we're the body, we're emotions, and we're the intellect, and then we're the energies, right? So we're the energy. And what is energy? The strength and vitality required for sustained physical or mental activity. So without these energies, the physical wouldn't be able to sustain itself. That's when people say, oh, that person just died. Because the energies had left the physical body, okay? So we're these four things, and it's happening either unconsciously or consciously. So going back to that statement I said earlier, I think it's hard for us to accept our growth sometimes because we know if we drop from that growth, we would feel like a failure somewhere. Whether we feel like a failure in our emotions or we feel like a failure in our intellect. Because the body's just picking up the data. And then the energies is just happening the way that the identity is deciding. So I titled this, Let Go My Ego. And the reason I did that, and then the subtext of that is the identity protector. Let go my ego, the identity protector, right? So whatever our identity decides that it is, our ego is going to protect it at all costs through our emotions and our intellect. And our energies will follow that. Tony Robbins has a cool quote, where focus goes, energy flows. So another way of saying that, if you focus on the negative, your energies will fill the negative, right? It will just live in that space without you knowing sometimes. So how do we become less identified with the body, emotions, intellect, so that our energies can remain balanced? Because think about this. Sometimes think about a day where you just felt like, man, nothing can really mess me up. Like my energies is cool. My energies are good. In that state, one or two things happen. Something happened on the outside that could have annoyed you, but you just kind of blew it off because it's just like nothing can mess up this balance right now. And then there's also a time where something had happened to where it took you from off that balance. It's because you identified with that moment at that time. And what I mean by that, you identify with the emotions at that time. You identify with what you thought was right or wrong at that time. Okay? And I want to go back to perception real quick, because this is very important. Perception, the ability to see, hear, or become aware of something through the senses, right? But we have to understand something. Our five senses is limited to what we trained it to understand. All right. There's a really cool picture. If you Google perception, there's a picture on the side on there that has a number 6, or is it a number 9? Right. It's a cool picture of two guys standing on each end of this number that's on the ground. And the guy who is at the round part of the number, he believes it's a 6 because he's at the round part and the tail is up top. So you draw a 6, the tail is up top and the round part is at the bottom. But the guy on the other side, he's at the tail part and the round part is away from him. So he says it's a 9 because his perception, it's a 9, obviously. Which one is right? Is it a 6 or is it a 9? So even our ability to view these objects and stuff, it's limited to where we are in reference to it. Okay? So if they were both on the same side, they would just both agree with if it's a 6 or if it's a 9. But none of them is right. They're both right, and we can both say they're both wrong at the same time. Okay? So the key here is to mold our identity to where, this is what I would say. I mean, please comment on this. So this is what I would say. The goal here is to become completely identified with the allness. So everything, the planet, the sun, this countertop that I'm sitting at right now. That's why I said earlier, I identified with every little thing, even the sink, because I could have just walked away from the sink and left it alone, but I identified with it. So the natural emotion that came up was, would I want to feel dirty? Or the natural thought that came up first was, would I want to feel dirty? And then the emotion came up of, no. So I cleaned it. So identify with everything or identify with absolutely nothing and just interact with everything accordingly, to add pleasantness to it. Okay, I'm trying to be careful with my words because I know if I use certain words, it could harm or it can hurt or make things better for certain people. But I just want to say, the way to let go my ego is to widen the identity to make it outside of my own body, emotions, intellect, and the energies is all the same, right? My unconsciousness isn't different than somebody else's unconsciousness. That's one way to say it. Or another way to think about it is I'm talking through a phone right now and a microphone. The electricity that is running the phone, or the energy that is running the phone, is no different than the energy that is needed to help this microphone work. If I have two appliances plugged into an outlet, I'm not going to say the electricity going to the laptop is different than the electricity going to the phone, right? So that part about us is all the same, the energy part. The things that are different is where we get our individual identity, which is this body is my body, but I am not the body. This emotion is my emotion, but I am not the emotion. This intellect is my intellect, but I'm not the intellect, those thoughts. Okay? So I wanted to put that out because I think it's very important to start with our identity, and then we can move into understanding how to increase our power of interpretation to not only better ourselves, but better everything else around us. Because like I said earlier, I've heard so many people come up to me now and say, man, I really feel calm around you and pretty chill. It's because I identify with everything. Every person I look at, I say that I am that person as well. And when I talk, I see how they react and I say, would that be the reaction I would want? And if it's a yes, I probably do a little bit more than that. If it's a no, I would say, why was that reaction? Because I want to make sure that I am being of service to the emotions and intellect and not of service, if that makes sense. Okay, guys, I hope this was cool. I'm still a little bit nervous about doing this because I know for me, I wouldn't want to talk about for 4 hours about one topic alone. So doing this in a shorter time frame is really challenging for me. And I'm way better at going off of somebody's questions. So we can say the question for this one was, Blue, how do I increase my power of interpretation and know what I'm identifying myself with? And that's this. Okay, guys. So thank you for listening. Thanks for checking this out. And I'll see you on the next episode. Please ask questions, comment what you like, comment what you didn't like, comment what you thought I did good, comment on what you think I did bad, any aha moments, any of this. It will help me create a channel that is actually useful for anybody who listens. Because like I said, I can talk about one topic for so long and I can go in depth on anything that I'm talking about. Otherwise, I wouldn't say it. All right, guys. Namaste and have a wonderful day. And thanks for listening. Peace.